please make sure you go over to YouTube, subscribe, or you can always find us on any of the podcast platforms, and that's Fostering Change. Well, you know what? It's so hard to believe that we are already in the month of April, and we've only got about 6 more weeks left of our podcast before the fifth season ends. You know, I say this probably every time I do a recording, whether or not will I do another season. And I have to tell you, when I was handed the folder from my producer about my next guest, this was the actual folder that stated, yes, there will be another season, a season 6, because these are the type of stories that I have been wanting to tell. These are the type of people that I have been wanting to speak to for the last 5 seasons. These are the stories that I think each and every one of us need to hear. You know, I get a lot of emails sent from people. Everybody has an opinion, including myself. And I've always said this. I truly do not feel that foster care is the answer. I truly do not feel that foster care has done much for any of us. But after I've read some of this, my next guest story, I thought to myself that maybe for once that we could use this as an example. And let me tell you what the example is before I bring her on. Is the fact is that I think that we should be going in and fostering the family. That we should not be fostering a child, that we should foster the family. Because when you look at our statistics in the United States, when 64% of kids who enter our foster care system enter because the judge has said of a word neglect, which neglect to me is no more than poverty. It's no more than having the actual type of things that are needed to maybe give them a one up. And with my next guest, I am so excited. So without further ado, Jackie, welcome to Fostering Change.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
So, Jackie, I absolutely am mesmerized by your story. Okay. So, you know, from somebody who grew up in the foster care system, I aged out. I have 5 children who I've adopted through foster care. I truly do believe that, you know, once a child enters the system, the trauma immediately begins. And what I've always dreamed of is to actually see a child come into the system and the family is fostering. And so, I want to talk about you because you're actually you're a mom of 3.
Yes, 3
Okay, you
now.
have 3 boys too.
Yes,
I have
twin.
4 boys, a girl. So I'm going to tell you something. There is nothing like, you know, being a parent to boys. So I'd love to jump right in. I want to know what happened. We still have time to vote for the 100X. Every time you go on and you actually vote, do a survey. It's not really voting. You're surveying saying, hey, I use Todd products or I use this. But guess what? Every time you do it, they actually send us money. We're almost close to the point where we can get $10,000. Can you believe that? You can vote every day, 7 times a day. I'm not kidding you. It normally takes about 30 seconds to get this done. And what a big impact that makes. That 30 seconds. Just think about it. One child every 2 minutes. We're going to be able to help so many kids by you just going in to 100X. You can go to our website. You can actually find the link. You can register. Just do it while you're sitting there, maybe before you're on Facebook or Instagram, or, you know, some of you enjoying some of the beautiful weather that we do not have here. But hey, do me a big favor. Help us out. Thanks a lot. Take care, everybody.
Well, there's a lot to that, but basically what happened was, I was stuck in drug addiction very hard. I got there for lots of reasons, but my dad died when I was 19, and that was something that I had trouble handling, and it threw me into rock bottom. So I was heavily addicted to drugs. I was in a relationship with an extremely abusive, narcissistic, just manipulative, just not so great person. I ended up getting pregnant. It was twins. Went through a pretty traumatic pregnancy, and about 16 months after they were born, the state actually came and took them away from me because I was
Were they born addicted?
no, I did end up in a rehab early on in my pregnancy, and then I got clean and stayed clean. I actually had an emergency surgery on them at 21 weeks where they almost died. They were born at 29 weeks just because they were twins and they had a lot of health issues while I was still pregnant. But they're fully healthy now. And I did really well for like the first year, like drug wise, and just living healthy and being a good mom and being
Had
what
you
they
gotten
needed.
out of that relationship with the narcissist? Oh,
No, that there's so many layers to that. It's outrageous, just like the kind of the grasp that that kind of relationship has on you. And the leave and come back and the leave and come back and the leave and not have anywhere really to go or any finances or like any actual support for yourself. So you just go back even though it's extremely toxic. And that was the cycle that I was stuck in. Um, yeah, my family watched me in that cycle and was so hard for them to watch. Um, but I
as they watched, did anybody put a branch out for you?
Yeah, so my mom actually, I was living with my mom with the twins while I was clean and sober and doing well. And that was, in St. Louis, which I live in Oklahoma now, which is where he was living. So I was like 6 hours away and I was doing well. And conversations with him took back and he would say stuff like, this is our family and, we're supposed to be together and like all the things that, manipulative people do, and pulled me back in. And
Was he
when I
using?
Yes, the entire time. He was using the entire time I was pregnant, the entire time the boys were in the hospital. It was, yeah, nonstop.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you go back to him, and there's something in the back of your head that says this isn't the right thing, but you do it because, I have to say, take it from someone, and for those of you who've read my memoir, at one time in my life, I also had a drug issue. So I understand what it's like to be addicted, and that addiction taking over you like there is no tomorrow. And no matter what, that you cannot see anything besides that next drug of how am I going to feel that feeling. Because for me, I feel like with you, and I just met you, Jackie, but it was more or less you were doing the drugs to mask the pain that you were going through, not only about losing your dad, but also the fact that, when you're in an abusive relationship like that, and by the way, men can be in them as well. And when you're in an abusive relationship like that, you're beat down so bad that you feel that nobody wants you and you're truly not worthy. So, what truly was that call that made someone make a call for the state to come in?
So for a long time, I thought somebody called on us, but that's actually not the case. It was a very traumatic incident where it got very physical. The cops were called. He was actually, and the kids were there. I was trying to leave. I was trying to leave and go back home to St. Louis, and he woke up. I was trying to sneak the kids out, and it was very traumatic. And he woke up after I got one of the boys out, and we ended up kind of doing a tug of war between the baby, and it just got really traumatic. He was charged with a assault with a deadly weapon with intent to harm against me. And I ended up, after that whole situation happened, like the cops were called, he got arrested, all the things. 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, I think I went up to the courthouse and basically told them I didn't want to press charges, which was like the red flag of like everything, and that's just another example of when you're stuck in that type of relationship. You don't have logical thinking. You're not reasonable. You literally are just like doing whatever that relationship asks you to do. And so that was the red flag for the court. Like, hello, this whole incident just happened with the baby in between them. And she's going to come up and say, I don't want to press charges. Like, there's something going on here. So I guess that was like less than 30 days after that incident, they showed up at our door. And, at that point, I was kind of in defeat. I was just like, I'm exhausted. I know this isn't the life I want to be living. I feel trapped. It's not good for my kids. It's not good for me. I'm meant for more. And so when they came in, I actually felt relief because it was like, okay, this is where I can turn things around. So she asked me all the questions about when I was using, what was going on in the house. And I was just open with her because I was tired of like putting up this front or whatever. I saw this as like a chance for me. And so they took them right then and there. Um, there's a lot of layers to that story. My mom was actually there at the time and they went with her first, but then they went to somebody else after that. Um,
Why didn't they stay with your mom?
well, my mom lives in St. Louis, so she was 6 hours away. And
Okay.
it's frustrating because the system really failed this whole part here, which happens a lot. It's very
And see,
easy.
Jackie, that's the fact. This is the thing that I don't think people realize. And again, I'm not beating you up, social workers that are listening, watching this, because I know how hard your job is. And the problem that I have is the majority of the kids who are removed by a judge who signs a piece of paper, and the only thing they know is what they've read in a folder. They don't know anything when it comes to the actual human contact, the actual human thing, and to have these two young boys, which by the way, from what I'm hearing, and again, you correct me, your mother would have easily taken these two boys for you until you got yourself together. Am I right?
Well, yeah, and she did for a little while, but she that where the system failed, it was actually a social worker here from this town who told my mom that she had the rights to take the kids and do whatever. And so my mom actually kept them from me until I was going to get clean and sober. But there was never actually a DHS case started. There was no case here. There was nothing open. There was no list of here, Jackie, this is what you're supposed to do to get them back. And so I actually fought. I went up there to get them, and the social worker told the cops up there that I had an open DHS case here and that the kids were supposed to stay with my mom. And that wasn't even true. And so they left them there. And I actually had to hire a lawyer down here to get them to come back here before I could ever even start my plan for.
So did your mom not want you to see them and not,
She did, but she knew my connection with their father of, my mom had to set boundaries with me a long time ago.
right.
And I was pretty treacherous, I'll say that. And
How's your
especially,
relationship with her now?
oh, great. Amazing. Amazing. We've gone through a lot of things and we're very close.
So
Yeah.
your kids come back, you have to literally hire an attorney. And by the way, I'm assuming you're clean at this point and you have left, you're still with them and you're still using.
Yep. Still stuck in that house. I didn't have anywhere else to go. I actually had my
Why didn't you
mom.
go to your mom's?
Well, she lived in St. Louis and
Okay,
they.
so but you didn't have anything besides an abuser that was there. Why didn't you? I mean, because these are the questions that people are asking right now. I'm going
Yeah.
to tell you. You know,
Yeah.
and by the way, I know what the answer is. Okay, because you can read my book. Hard to believe, but I was with an abuser, and I know what that's like, and I know what
Yeah.
it's like to be a user and someone who you're with that is using, and how hard it is to walk away. But people want to know, why did you not walk away?
Well, and that's actually some of my favorite things to talk about because from the outside looking in, it's like, well, duh, why wouldn't you just leave the relationship? Why wouldn't you just go? Why wouldn't you just go where the logical, safe, healthy place would be to go? And it's like, that's where the disconnect is. It's because the place that I was like broken and I brainwashed basically by him and also high on drugs on 24/7. You don't think clearly. You don't have that ability to even rationalize what you should be doing. It's just you're stuck in this cycle and this cycle and this cycle. Yeah, I didn't go there because I had actually turned my mom into the enemy in my mind. So did he, that my mom was the bad guy, that my mom had called DHS on us in the first place. Because it wasn't until years later I realized that that's not what it was. At that time I was looking at my mom as the enemy, but also, anybody else. It was like, how could this be happening to me, as
And you
opposed to,
took my babies,
yeah,
you
yeah.
took my babies. So the fact is, so your kids come back and they end up in foster care. And they end up in, how many homes have they been in?
So they are Native American, and here in Oklahoma, if they're Native American, the Cherokees also get involved. And so you actually have like two different caseworkers.
Right.
And the Cherokees always fight for the kids to go to a native home. That's part of what it is. And so they initially went, this is where our story is kind of weird, or the whole thing's weird, but um their biological father, it was actually his ex-wife who they have two kids with, is where the twins went first. And she's a completely safe, amazing person, house, home. We're still friends today. She's really close with the twins still. But they went there first, but because she's not native, they actually turned and went to another house, which was actually family placement, sort of, because they're related to him, but they weren't foster parents in the first place. So they had to go through the
So they hadn't
whole.
even been licensed or no vetting whatsoever, but they went ahead and stuck these two twin boys with these people just because of the blood that ran within their veins.
Yes. And thank God that they're amazing people. We're still really
Right.
close with them today too, but they
But
couldn't
Jackie,
do
you gotta realize that the cases of the fact that they're amazing people. I mean, you look at the number of children and within our foster care system that are sexually abused once they come into foster care, that are
Yeah.
physically abused once they come into foster care. You know, it's the whole reason why we require licensing and background checks. And by the way, even with all of that, we still have a shattered system. And so here they're with these strangers, you know, because I mean the boys didn't know them. I mean, you didn't
I
know
didn't,
them.
I didn't know
You
them.
didn't know them. They're strangers. And all of a sudden you realize, you know, here I am. I'm a drug addict. And let's admit it, you were a drug addict. You know, psychologically, you needed more therapy than probably, you probably even imagined that you needed. What was the turning point, that you said, this is enough?
Well, I have always I'm just a nurturing person. I'm a mom type. I've always been that person to my friends. And like when I had kids, it was like this is my world. Like I knew that this was my world, even though outside looking in, it didn't look that way. I just had found myself in that position. And so I always knew that I was going to fight and do whatever I could to get them back. I actually ended up still at that same house for months because I didn't have anywhere else to go. And I was working my plan. I was doing the counseling. I was doing the domestic violence classes and doing all the things I was supposed to do, going to my visitations. He wasn't, but I was still stuck there. And then there was one day where I literally I not told him, but felt to my heart, I was like, I am done with this because he tried to start a fight and get physical and do all the things. And I just knew I was like, this is it. I am so done with this. And I remember I tried to leave, he wouldn't let me. And so the open window was right there. And so I actually jumped out the second story window to get away from him. I pushed off the house, laid it on the gravel, and started taking off towards the street. He ran down the steps, followed me out, pulled me down by my hair, tried to drag me back into the house, and I just held on to the fence for dear life and like dug my feet underneath. And I was telling myself in my mind, like, I'm done with this. Like I'm not looking back. I'm going forward. And I had made that decision. I felt it in my whole body. And at that moment, there just happened to be a girl riding on her bike. She was like, I don't know, 9 or 10 maybe. And when he saw that she saw what he was doing to me, like he was shoving rocks in my mouth, like trying to get me to stop screaming and all the things. And in that split moment, he let go of me for a second because she saw him. And I hopped the fence and I ran and I went to where she was. She had a phone and I called the cops. Um, and that was it. That was the turning point. I mean, it was so traumatic and so much, but I fought, like I fought for what I wanted.
Yeah.
And yeah, it all started from there.
So how long were your boys gone from you?
Total, including like the reunification, which was like 6 months, was 21 months from the day it started to the day it was closed.
It's a long time.
It is a long time.
Long time.
It's a very
And I love the fact though, there's something that you said, that I can't get it out of my mind, by the way, because I didn't grow up, I didn't have the best parents and then didn't end up having the best foster parents. And you wrote, foster care gave me the chance to become a better person and a better mom, you know, a better person, a better. And what I love about that line that you wrote is the fact that, so many times we hear about all the bad foster parents, all the things that are happening to kids when they're in foster care, even those who age out, all of a sudden, I read blogs all the time and Facebook posts where, they're bashing the foster parents and stuff. And here hear about this woman who comes right out and admits, listen, I had a drug issue. I was being controlled, and the best thing that could have happened to my children were for them to be taken from me because that gave you the opportunity to do your healing that you're doing. So, what made these foster parents different?
well, I mean, they were they gave me my space to kind of figure out what I was going to do. Like, was I going to show up and do what I needed to do? Like, or was I just going to be like, whatever, like take him, whatever, not do what I was supposed to do? And so they kind of gave me space. But once they started to see that I was really trying, even though he wasn't, and I was doing what I needed to do, they gave me the benefit of the doubt. They got rid of the thought that, oh, this is hopeless, she's hopeless, and like looking at me in the position I was, and instead looking at what I was willing to do and how hard I was willing to work to get them back. And I think that's just such a big part, because like, especially foster care, like you can feel so, doing it over and over again and not seeing the kids thrive or the families thrive, and just like being kind of heartbroken about it. You can get, jaded, I guess, and just expect that it's going to happen again, and that this person's not going to get their stuff together and get their kids back. And they just,
But you know what? I have to tell you, I think a lot of that issue, though, is that we immediately walk into the system thinking that you're a bad person. And I think that is a huge, huge misconception that you're a bad person because you don't have your kids, and you're a bad person because you chose the pipe and didn't chose. I mean, people immediately consider the birth mother. And by the way, it's never the birth dad. The birth dads always walk away smelling like roses, and nobody ever, but it's always the birth mom who they come out as these bad, which you're not, and I have to tell you, the thought of losing one of my children is devastating. But I also think about their birth parents when they lost their children. But I also think, and this is something that I see you do, which you inspire me, which is why I'm having another season, because I want guests like you, is because you did exactly what the system was built for. You have your children who came to a foster family. The foster family supported you, which is what they should be doing, giving you I always used to say it all the time. If my kids' birth parents needed a trip to go to rehab, I drive them there. If they, when one of our birth parents complained that she wasn't getting enough visitation, she was only getting an hour supervised a week, we went to the courts and mandated the courts to allow us to supervise the visits so we can increase the amount of visits that she had. Now, she chose not to come anymore, but that was her choice. You, in turn, took this opportunity, as you said. Foster care gave me the chance to become a better person and a better mom, and that's what you took. My gosh, you have to sit down one day, Jackie, and you have to tell your story to your boys.
yeah, I have. So I did actually tell them about their biological dad, because I'm remarried now and he's amazing. And the boys, look at him as a father, but they call him Sean. They don't call him dad. And so, they're getting to the age that we actually had that conversation. So I shared that part with them, and I even told them the truth, because I'm wholeheartedly behind just telling the truth and just letting it out for
Good.
whatever age they are. And I told them that he was actually in jail, because he was at the time, and they asked why, and I said for being mean to me. And they asked more questions, and I was like, well, we'll talk about that when you're older, because that's about as much as they can handle. And they were like, okay, you know.
So do they see him at all?
Oh no, he hasn't seen them since the case. He was barely doing enough during the case just to make it to where it looked like he was putting forth effort. So
I
they
gotta
haven't.
ask the question, does he pay any support?
Well, I mean, he's supposed to, but he doesn't have a job or do anything like that. His parents support him and allow him to live the
Isn't
lifestyle that.
that isn't that always so the way it is? Those parents that enable the sickness of someone, and that's exactly what they've done. They're
Oh yeah.
enabling the sickness of that. So tell me, I want to know why you want to tell your story.
Well, there's a lot of reasons, I guess. I was really nervous to start in the first place. My best friend actually was like, "You have a story you have to tell," and I was like, "Yeah." So I started doing it, and the more and more I would, more people would message me like on social media and just tell me, thank you for sharing what you're going through, because it makes me feel not alone, because it's something similar that they're going through. And the more that happened, the more I really had to look at like, why am I sharing my story? And you know, people change. Like that's the biggest thing that I want people to understand, is that people can change, uh, or what you said earlier. I just said this on my story this morning before I got on here. Like what you see on the outside, especially if somebody's at rock bottom. You don't know what got them there. You don't know the past 30 years that got them where they are. It's not like they just woke up one day like, I'm going to become a drug addict, or I'm going to lose my kids today. It's a series of things that happens to get you to that point, but that even in that point, you don't have to give in and give up and decide that's my story forever. Like, you can always rewrite it and become somebody different and do something different. And that's, that's my message.
And I agree with you. I tell people all the time, I mean, you have the ability to write your own chapters. And don't ever let anybody write those chapters for you. As we end this, there's another thing that I absolutely love about you, Jackie. I've always said trauma is what we give children when we reunify with birth parents. And let me tell you, the reason we give that trauma is because all of a sudden, for 20 some months, children are with a family, somebody that they wake up every single morning, they have breakfast with every single morning, they go to sleep at night every single night. These are people that are in their life for 12 months, 22 months, some 4 years, and all of a sudden they're reunified with birth parents, and no longer do the other family even survive. And I think that that is such a traumatic experience. It's at once again, but with you, and by the way, you're my first I've ever interviewed. I have ever had this. I'm just mesmerized about who you are as a human. But for you, your boys actually have a relationship with their foster parents, even to the point where they do sleepovers.
Oh yeah, they go there. So they'll go on like a Friday night and stay until Sunday. They'll call and be like, "Can we stay another night?" And yeah, sure. They have a son who's 3 years older than the twins, and obviously they bonded while they were there, and it was just they were at home there too. And it's also really helpful, the trauma you're talking about. It's like I decided when I got them back that, like, if we just kept this going, then they would never really know or understand that they lived there because I wasn't well until I was ready to tell them. But that's just the way it's always been. Sometimes they go to Bobby and Brittany's and they stay for a couple days and hang out and do birthdays and stuff. And then, but home is home.
Wow. Wow. Listen up, everybody. I'm going to tell you something. I am the luckiest guy in the world because I have not a job, but I have a purpose. And the purpose is this podcast, Fostering Change, truly looking at people and getting other people to make an understanding that we all have the ability to change. Jackie, you said it so clearly. And again, you, my friend, are truly what I call the definition of a good human. You did not allow foster care to do what it does to so many, which is beat us down and make us feel less than. You didn't come across, by the way, as a victim. You realize that had to get something together. Your boys deserved it. And now, I think about your new daughter that you have and how, oh, you have another boy. Oh, that's right. Your other son that you have, about how, just what a better human and you're growing two amazing boys because of that. Again, I don't know how much more to say because this has just blown my mind away. Everyone, I talk about what's the best of, and when I take my seasonal break, I always list the best of. I've got a lot of awards that are sitting behind me because of some of the best podcasts that I have actually been on that my producer has produced. But Jackie, I will have to tell you, this is the top. It could not get any better than this. I just want to thank you. I needed to talk to you today. And so for that, I thank you. I hope you keep in touch. I truly want to hear more about the journey. And everyone listen up. If you have any questions, please just email us at info@comfortcases.org. Understand something, and I hope that we all take away from hearing this podcast, is that we all have the ability to write our own chapters in our own book. Jackie, thank you so much. I hope you and the boys and your husband, I hope you continue to thrive because you truly deserve it, my friend. You deserve it. So take care, everybody. Hey everybody, it's Rob Scheer, the founder of Comfort Cases, and thanks for tuning in to Fostering Change. You can actually watch a couple of episodes right here